All right. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm your host, Drew Pizzulo. Welcome to this episode of Watch Out. I am fired up and energized today because today we're going to be talking about watch batteries. And on day number 287 of COVID 19 lockdown, I've pretty much run out of other topics from this one, which we haven't discussed yet. So, let's talk about this. We're going to talk about watch batteries in general, the main manufacturers, how to do it, how much they cost, and a little history of them. So let's start with the history first. The history really came into existence in the late 1970s during the quartz watch crisis, when watch batteries and quartz watches became the dominant feature in the watch marketplace, replacing automatic watches. Because they were cheaper and more reliable and more accurate. So since that point, in today's market, quartz watches, while not my favorite, but I have them like everybody else, has still over 90% of the market. And it's good to know how to replace your quartz watch battery, where to get them, and the different types, so you can do it yourself in today's society, which in this case, at this point in the lockdown, everything is do it yourself. You can't bring it to a jewelry store because all non-essential businesses are currently closed. That being said, let's go right to it. You basically have two different types of quartz watches, and we're not talking about Apple Watches or anything of that. We're not talking about the smartwatch market. We're talking about regular quartz watch market, which most people still have today. And you can either go with the screw down back, which I believe is about 30 or 40% of this segment that we're talking about. That does have a screw down feature. And all you would need to get that open is your regular screwdriver, and you would pop the case back open from there once those are unscrewed. Or you go with the snap open case back, which most watches that are quartz do have today. And all you would need to pop this open, you could use a screwdriver. That is one area that you could do. If it's small enough and it fits into that case opening, it would work. Or they do have specific case openers that look like this. You can buy them on eBay for about $6. That has a curved edge that is meant to get within the crevice and pop it open. As you can see right here, you would just get in the crevice, pop open, and there you go. And you're left with the inside of the watch. Now, most ladies' watches have the snapback open, so this is the very easy thing to do. A lot of the cheaper watches have the snapback as well. And if you look over here, you basically see the battery. On the battery, you're going to see a number. And usually the number is going to either begin with one of two things. It's either going to begin with LR, or it's going to begin with a 3. Most do begin with a 3, as there is 100 different types, over 100 different types of watch batteries, which make it really frustrating. In this case, this is a 377. Now, what's interesting about the 377 is 377 batteries are the most common type of watch battery on the market. This is what you pray to see every time you open the watch. And the reason is because it is the most accessible. You could go to Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Lowe's, sometimes even Target and Walmart. You can go to Home Depot and pick this up. They are also used in other types of electronic devices. That's why they carry it. So this is the easiest one to change and the easiest one to get. And all you would do is you'd take that same screwdriver and you would get underneath the watch head right here and basically flip this open, take the battery out, and then you would put your new battery in. And it goes right into the battery slot. You snap the battery in, and voila, it's in, and you put the cover back on, and your battery is changed. Now that obviously is the easy way to do it, but first you have to know what you are changing. So like I said, there are over 100 different types of batteries. You read the backing, and you find out the model number. Outside of the 377, there really isn't a very common watch battery that is known that people have in stock. You see a lot of 364s, you see a lot of 373s, 379s are another very popular model number for women's watches. Obviously, the smaller batteries are going to be towards the female watches, the larger ones would be towards the male. 379s are even smaller than the 377s, and other watches like 373s are more common for men's watches because they are bigger. They do have a bigger watch battery compartment. So, and one watch battery will not work. You have to have the exact number. And most brands will correspond with that number one way or another. You can look it up even online. And if you try to fit a watch with a different number battery, it just won't work. It's a different size, or it's a different depth, or it may fit, but it will not run. So they are designed for one specific number, and that is all for the watch's lifespan. So basically, with watch batteries, there are several companies that do make them. The most common are Sunbeam and Renata. There are a lot of Japanese brands, and one that I have noticed a lot is Hitaka, Hitaka, and Sony also makes them. Sony it makes them an Energizer as well. The brands like Sony and Energizer are the highest quality battery on the market. They usually last up to a year. It used to be longer when Swiss watches, like the Concorde I have over here, when they first came out, I guess 30, 35 years ago, 40 years ago, these batteries used to last a lot longer. And if you talk to older generations, you'll say, oh yeah, my watch battery used to last 2 years. That was true. They used to make them a lot more powerful than they do today. And the one main reason is because as the industry progressed and they got more competition, they needed more revenue. And the better way to get revenue is to shorten the battery's lifespan. Because watch batteries are a big industry to jewelers and watchmakers. If you go in to a jeweler or a watchmaker, I'm sure everybody knows, you can pay anywhere between $5 and $20 for a battery watch change, which is, they're all about paying for convenience because they have every number available. They have over 100 models in all different shapes and sizes for your watches, and the truth is the profit margin is astronomical. Watch batteries, for instance, this is a Sony, one of the highest that you can get. Like I said, Sony and Energizer are probably the best you can get on the market. And a 10-pack would cost you about $5. Now that's a 10-pack. If you divided that by 10, that means the watch battery itself you're really paying about 50 cents for. I mean, it only costs probably about 10 cents to make, but 50 cents is probably your profit. It's how much you would be able to buy watch batteries for. Renata's even cheaper. I mean, you can get Renatas or Sunbeams, which are the lowest quality and only last you about 5 or 6 months, for about 10 or 20 cents a battery. Okay, so a 10-pack would cost you about $2 on average. You can get it on eBay or Amazon is the most common places for it. There are plenty of places that have them as well. So you have that discrepancy. And when you talk about an average watch battery replacement costing $15 for something that costs them 20 cents, I mean, that's a nice profit margin, and it's the most common thing that people do. They bring their watches in because they don't want to do it themselves. And it's very, very easy to do it yourself. Like I just showed you, you either just snap it on or you unscrew it, you change the battery yourself. And you may say to yourself, well, is it even worth it for me to do? And in the long run, it is. What I would suggest is you do buy a battery pack, like a 5-pack or a 10-pack. And if you figure each one lasts you, especially the Sonys, if it lasts you around a year or so, you got 5 or 10 years covered right there for your watch if you wear it frequently, and you don't need to go to the jeweler to get it done for you. It's more of just a do-it-yourself type method. Watch batteries really aren't going anywhere. They usually are centered in 2 locations. When you buy them, you can either expect for the location to either be in China, big shock there, or ironically in Brooklyn, New York, which is a very, very big hub for watch batteries. Because you do have a lot of industry there using watch batteries. So they'll either be shipped from China or New York, most likely, because most of these are coming either from China or Japan. Don't forget Hitaka and Sony are Japanese brands. All right, and you're going to have a lot of the stuff is still made in Japan, and the birthplace of the quartz watch was Japan. So a lot of these things do come from international places like Japan or China. But the average lifespan of a battery watch is, unfortunately, these days anywhere between 5 months to 8 months. You're lucky if you get a year, but that is the most common way for us to discuss changing a watch and how much it does cost you to do it, because it really is pennies on the dollar once you add it up over time. I do recommend to pick up a couple packs. Find out first, get your quartz, open the case backings up, find out what number they correspond to, get that number, go buy a pack on eBay or Amazon, and change the watch battery yourself. It only takes about 2 to 5 minutes to do, based on how complicated they are. Like I said, whether you're dealing with Concord where they have the screws in the back, some of these have more screws than others. As this Rado has 4 screws. This Concord, I think, has 8. Those are probably the most time-consuming watches of all of them. But most of them, like I told you before, do have snapbacks. And the only thing I will say about snapbacks, some of the watches that have snapbacks, as I've been finding out, especially the ladies' watches, don't snap back, which means once you get it open, it's very hard to get it closed because they have a mechanism that doesn't allow you to do it. So what I would recommend, there are, just like there are case openers, there are also case closers. And they're basically, what they look like, they're tweezers, and they have a rubber padding on each side, the upper and the lower side, and you squeeze it together to snap the case back without breaking the watch crystal. That's the most dangerous thing you could do, is try to do it yourself or pound it in with a hammer, because what's going to end up happening is you're going to shatter the glass or the crystal, whatever it's made out of. And that's what people do want to avoid when you're putting the case back in place after you change the watch battery. So everybody, please watch that, as that is an important thing not to do when you're changing a watch battery. So that pretty much sums up the whole do-it-yourself watch battery mechanism. And thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully out of quarantine next month in May 2020, and I'll see you on the next episode of Watch Out.